I'm Amy from Trees Not Teas. We offer runners the chance to turn down the finisher's t-shirt at the end of a race and plant a tree instead. And today we're talking to Chris Zair, who is also from Trees Not Teas and is also, on top of that, one of the co-founders of a new organisation called the Green Runners. And that's what we're going to be talking to him about today. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Amy. How are you doing?
Good, thanks. Thanks for coming and talking to us.
No problem. Always a pleasure.
So first of all, can you just tell us a little bit about what the Green Runners is, who you are?
Yeah, definitely. So Green Runners is kind of a club, a movement in the running space, originally kind of UK, but kind of already moving worldwide, that's trying to encourage runners to be more sustainable, to be more conscious, more conscious of the impact that we have on the environment. So yeah, it's a bit of a collection that is growing, that's trying to create iterative change in how we approach our daily lives as runners.
Fantastic. So where did this whole idea come from in the first place?
So it came from a kind of a separate group, which is the Extinction Rebellion for Runners, or Runners for Extinction Rebellion, where we were talking about how we can take the kind of the message of Extinction Rebellion, but also then make it something that the mass population can get on board with, and something we can create that change across the broader spectrum of runners. So it kind of spawned from that group, and it's really just gained a lot of momentum from people from that area, and then more people joining over the last kind of 6-9 months.
Yeah, fantastic. So you've got these 4 key areas that you focus on, is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So when we were planning, we were trying to understand, making it kind of bite-sized and understandable, so that people can attack their daily lives and work out, rather than just giving a list of 30 or 40 things that you could do better, because sometimes it can be a little bit overwhelming. So we worked out what are the 4 areas where people can make an impact. So we thought, well, research shows that travel, when it comes to running, is the biggest part of someone's footprint. So a lot of kind of research has gone into, I think, Paris Marathon in 2018, over 90% of the footprint of that event was from travel, because people are jetting in across the world, on planes, trains, driving there. So the first element is looking at how we travel to races, how we travel to training, maybe holidays, running in the mountains, that kind of stuff, and trying to say, think before you book. Don't just fly around and book races that look amazing and then think, when it comes to it, I've got to fly to get there. Kind of think travel first, and be more conscious when you're booking travel, or when you're booking your events, and try and find stuff that you can get a train to, or you can take a little bit of time, spend the weekend there. If you have to fly, we're not saying no flying at all. We're not trying to be completely at that end of the spectrum, but just to improve all the time and be more conscious, really to reduce your flying as much as possible. But then if you're going to fly, make it a couple of weeks trip if you can. Make it that kind of huge bucket list race. Get the trains whenever you can, and carpool and those things.
Just from having the runners that I've sort of talked to doing these interviews, that does actually, I have heard a lot of people talking about that, how in the past they would fly, not mindlessly, but very automatically, like you say, without really considering, do I need to be doing this?
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's only over the past few years that we've become, as a wider society, been really conscious of the impact of flying on the environment. And myself, I've come from I flew around Europe doing races in 2014, loads of marathons, without any, there was no second thought about that. So we're not trying to chastise people for either flying in the past or still flying bits now, because you've got places that you want to see, but it's, how can you just be more conscious? And even if you flew 3 times last year, fly once this year, and then keep on reducing that down, because we don't want to make a tiny percentage of the population brilliant at this. It's all about change with everyone.
Brilliant. Okay, so that's the kind of the big one by the sounds of it. And then what are the other areas that you're looking at?
Yeah, so then you've got kit, you've got food, so what you wear, what you eat, and then the final one is kind of using your voice to bring other people along with the journey, because again, it's great having a small group of people who are getting involved, but we want to be a big group of people, and the best way to spread the word is through your own networks, through your own running clubs, because it should be something that everyone can get involved with, in little improvements.
again, that's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I think people are sort of more comfortable making their own choices, but quite a few people don't feel comfortable speaking out about this. I mean, I think it's becoming more acceptable, but people are worried they're going to be called hypocrites, or I don't know, negative perception of that.
Yeah, I think, and that's right, there is that risk there. But I think for every person who thinks you're being a hypocrite, there'll be 2 or 3 people that also think, okay, cool, that's a good thing. I think there's a kind of, as a society, there is a movement towards these things. So the more we see it from people we look up to, people we follow on social media, if we get to a change where everyone who's kind of sending messages of sharing content around the races they're doing around the world, if that suddenly shifted to the people who said, I'm actually not doing those races around the world, I'm choosing ones in Europe or in the UK, so you don't have to travel. If we get to that tipping point, suddenly the social influences that we look up to for brands that we want to buy or places we want to travel to, if they're changing that message, then it'll become kind of more of a mass message that we'll all buy into.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it feels like we're heading that way, doesn't it? It does sort of feel like that.
I hope so. It's easy to become to be in a bit of an echo chamber of the runners that you follow, because I think we're moving towards that. We haven't got enough runners who have got a platform like Damien, who are outspoken on their actions. For every Damien, there's 10 runners who are flying Golden Trail Series race to race to race to race. You've only got to look at the kind of the likes from Salomon this year. They had a training camp in the Alps, and then the next day I think they were in Cape Verde, they were then somewhere else. And you've got it still needs a lot of change, and it's got to be from the brands, because the brands want the coverage. And at the moment it's kind of travel around the world, be where our amazing brand, tackle the biggest mountains, kind of train, and there's so much content around that, whereas it'd be so powerful if that message changed. So progress, but things to improve.
For a journey.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you join the Green Runners, you make pledges, is that right?
Yeah. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, could you tell us what have you personally pledged?
So my main pledge is moving forward to not travel by plane to races, and I'm also trying to cut my meet content down to 1 day a week rather than probably 2 or 3 days a week before this. And that, I think those are examples of, especially with the meat one, we're not saying, I mean, vegan runners have a brilliant role in as part of society, but we're not saying, sometimes you can isolate people by saying, all right, cut it out or you're failing. So it's kind of reduce what you're doing at the moment. And also trying to make sure if a piece of kit is torn or broken, not just knee-jerk reaction to get a new piece of kit, to look at people like Rerun and say, is there something on Rerun that I can buy, or is there kind of second-hand kit that I can find? So those are the 3. And I'm in a tricky situation because I actually live in Barcelona, so I'm trying to work out how I can see my. Sorry, I've got my Slack still open here. I'm not sure if that was being recorded. How do I see my family without flying? So I'm looking at buying a second-hand car, and I'm trying to look for that at the moment to make sure that when I go back, I can go back for 2 or 3 weeks at a time, and actually reduce or cut out my flying entirely. So there's lots of little bits of work in progress.
Yeah, rather than sort of nipping back for the weekend, you want to make it into a longer kind of trip.
Exactly. So the aim will be to drive back maybe 3 times a year and spend 2 to 3 weeks there and maximize the time. Maybe tie in a nice UK-based race where it's slightly chillier than it is out here in Spain, because the summer months aren't great for racing out here if you're not good in the heat.
You're not getting any sympathy for living in Spain.
No, not looking for it. That's all right.
So anyone can join Green Runners, right?
Anyone can join Green Runners.
How do they do that?
So if you go to the website, which is thegreenrunners.com, you'll find the ability on there to make a pledge. And then you can also, when you make a pledge, you can order through, I think it's through PayPal on there, Green Runners badges. And these are made by the guys down at Rerun. So they're badges printed on recycled, all the kind of the kit that's from Rerun. So it'll be a badge that you can then stitch on, iron onto your own kit to give a bit of life to an old piece of kit. And then at the same time we ask you to make a pledge, and that can either be publicly on social media, sharing it to the world, or if you want, that can just be a pledge to yourself, or you can email it to us. It just says, of those 4 things, what are you going to do? What are the bite-sized chunks that you're going to make this year? So it's something you can kind of live by for the rest of the year, and then something you can adapt and improve on each year.
It's brilliant. I think it's really fantastic. It's great that you've done this. And also, I was looking on the website earlier. If you're curious at all, just go on the website, because it's brilliant. And there's all this really fantastic content on there about things that people can do in a very straightforward way. So it's really great that you're putting this together.
Thank you. Yeah, and a lot of the content is now being created by people who weren't originally in the WhatsApp group, but are now helping. Point number 4 is speak about it, and they're sending content in, they're getting involved. So we're a kind of a growing community that is driven by the people who have made a pledge and who are part of it. So it'd be great to get more people involved.
Fantastic. Well, yeah, I'm sure you will. I'm sure it'll be growing and growing. Chris, thank you so much for coming and talking to us about that, talking us through all that. I think it's fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate you talking about it. Thank you very much, Amy.
Thank you. Take care.